I'd like to welcome our first keynote speaker of the afternoon up. We've got Sven Schoof from Spree. Sven is the head of customer experience, and a little something about Spree won the CXA Digital Experience Award the other night, which is pretty exciting, doing some really cool groundbreaking like image recognition search functions on their website, which sound really cool. So anyway, and with that, I will hand it over to you. Are you?
I think I am. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Awesome. I think I have a pointer. Does anyone know if is it this one here? Yeah. And then just, sorry. Forward back.
Yes.
We don't know.
Forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Hi everyone. You took away my last slide where I just kind of mentioned that we won the CXA Innovator Award 2 nights ago, which is very exciting. But what I will do is I'll tell you a little bit about what we actually did there. But this is definitely not all about Spree. This is about all sorts of things. It's about empowering your customers how to interact with your brand. And my name is Sven. I'm not Swedish. I work for Spree. I get asked this a lot. I work for Spree. Who here knows who Spree is? Like a show of hands. Wow. Okay, I'll let our marketing division know they're doing a fantastic job. So Spree is an online fashion retailer. We're based in Cape Town, and I'm very happy to be here with a lot of like-minded, customer-focused, customer experience people, which is great. And that's the thing that I'll start off with is where we should always all start off with is like with the customer and who is the customer. And I think this is a very, very simple question to ask, but it's very, very hard to answer, right? So I think this is something that we obsess about a lot. And the funny thing is, I'm just going to do this. The funny thing is, I've sat in a lot of meetings in a lot of different companies all over the world, and people always talk about the customer, but the question really is who is the customer that they're referring to at that point in time. And it seems like when you're sitting in those meetings, it seems very, very oversimplistic, and everybody's talking about one customer, one specific person, or one type of customer, but we all know that if you look at the customer bases, no matter what your industry is or what you're offering or which market you're in, it's more like this, right? And you don't have to go to Africa Burn to figure this out. It's obviously very individual, and I think I was part of a KPMG workshop just before lunch, and there were some great highlights just on how personalized experiences need to be nowadays to actually make the experience work very well for you and for the customer. So why am I showing this? At Spree, for instance, we've got various customer segments, but if you break it into 2 very distinct groups, we've got males and females. So just point in case, or case in point, that those are as different as they can get. And then obviously you need to kind of create experiences which are very relevant to that specific set of customer. Let me see if my pointer is working. So even if you understand your customers right now and you've got the data, you've done a lot of interviewing, you really understand your different segments and so on, that's great, but it's not good enough because it's constantly changing. So markets are changing, customer needs are changing, technology is changing. So I think the job that we have is very, very challenging. It's fun, but it's very challenging because it's very much a moving target, and it's something to be very aware of. Let's get into something. So I'm going to talk about 1 or 2 things that you probably all know, and you preach this yourselves within your industry and within your companies, but it's something that needs to be kind of bludgeoned in again and again and again. And even though if we talk about mobile first, I think Luke Wroblewski wrote the book and kind of coined the mobile first terminology. It's close to 10 years ago. I think it was 2009, so it's old news. But still, there are a lot of companies who are not getting this right for a variety of reasons. And I find even though when I started at Spree a couple of years ago, what happened is I walked in and I asked, what is the mobile strategy for Spree? And the then CEO said to me, he said, well, you tell me. And he gave me 3 days to figure it out. And I said, okay, wow, I have no idea. And this is a great opportunity, thanks, but this is kind of hard to do, right? And if anybody ever asks, or should you ever be in a situation where people still question yes, there's a revolution and it's all mobile, but do we really need to put in all our time and energy and really focus on mobile first as opposed to doing a lot of other things? The answer is obviously yes, because I think the headline says it all. It's becoming very ubiquitous. It's around the corner. 2020 is not far away, but even today, I think specifically in markets as we see here in Africa or India, it's already so mobile heavy that if you don't get that experience right, you might as well go home. What we've been doing at Spree, so our evolution was really, as I said, like, what is our strategy? Literally, we had a desktop-first strategy a couple of years ago when we started, as probably everyone, and because it made sense. That's where all the sales were, that's where all the traffic was. Mobile was like, whatever, kind of the naughty boy in the corner, and nobody cared about tablets. What we've changed sort of within the company from a cultural point of view is that we are now, we literally design mobile first. And then we took it a step further. We didn't have apps for a very long time. We now have native apps. And what we did is we actually are mobile app first. So the evolution of our design process when we build things for our customers is that we actually take the mobile app first. So if I give something to a designer and they come back with some desktop design, I send them back and say, give me a mobile app design first, please. And then we do that, and then we iterate off of that. So if that works, then we take that to the tablet app, and then we take it to the mobile web, then to the tablet web, and then the very last iteration is really the desktop, right? So we've completely changed our paradigm as to how we approach this kind of experience, and it shows very much, not only in sort of, these are real numbers, past 2 years. I'm not sure if everyone can see this, but essentially what you can see is the blue is the mobile line, so this is a traffic share graph, and the red is desktop. And mobile means, in our case, we've defined it as being sort of phone and tablet devices, right? And the point of inflection, interestingly enough, is literally where we launched our mobile apps. Okay, so they definitely help to boost the mobile traffic side of things. And similarly, for sales, it's taken a while to catch up. But again, there's already been an inflection point quite recently this year. And we do close to 50% of our sales on our mobile apps alone. This is not on web, this is mobile apps alone. So it has dramatically changed, just even within our small vision of things. And it's a true reflection of what is happening pretty much globally. Being mobile first is one thing, and that's great if your companies are doing this, but it's not really enough. Mobile first does help to create a sort of, multi-device design or a universal app or responsive website kind of design approach, but it doesn't necessarily cater for all the different aspects there are, because I think when we think mobile first, or when we think about different devices, we just think about screen sizes, and there's a lot more to be said than just screen sizes. When we look at devices such as these, there are a lot of different dimensions. This is actually an interesting graph just to show the landscape and how it's exploded. And this is an old image, actually. I think this is a 2013 image when there were only about 12,000 Android devices. This is just purely Android, to show you that if you're catering, or obviously we are catering for these markets, and Android is the huge part of the market, then good luck with trying to individually personalize that experience without doing multi-device design. Something else we said for this is, this is a kind of a Tim Cook quote from not so long ago, that it's not just about the size, but it's also about the resolution, it's about clarity, it's about sensors. There's a whole lot of different things that these small supercomputers that we now carry around with us offer to our customers, and therefore we can leverage to create quite amazing experiences, but we also need to leverage to make it very, very personal, because your device might be quite different to my device, and probably is. But trying to push the same thing into both devices is not necessarily going to work. Also, just to show, I think this is really interesting because it shows from someone who's building these experiences for customers, to show where we've come from, where we had kind of 100 pixels per inch a screen resolution, and it's really moved on quite fast to getting more and more pixels in there. And if you look at sort of large formats, we're talking about 5,000 pixels. That changes what you need to design for and how you design and what you need to cater for to make sure that your app or your website works across everything. We've recently had, I think it was Samsung, talk to us about sort of a TV app. So that's also quite a different paradigm for us. Should we do it? It's not necessarily going to do it, but it's an interesting idea. But again, thinking about these different devices, so down from wearables right up to huge screens, changes very much about how you think about the customer experience. Aspect ratio is another example. And then this is one that I like as well, is input. So many different form factors, and again, so many, I think the top parts are really all the different input types that you have. So, you know, you have multi-touch, or you have force touch, or you've got all sorts of sensors that your phone has. It's quite hard to keep up with that kind of technology and still ensure that you have a very personalized experience. So posture is probably one of the ones that most, I think, companies don't really relate to when they're building things, just because it seems a little bit foreign. We think about the screen size, but we don't necessarily think about how far is that screen away from you, what is the context, am I sitting at home in front of a TV, or am I sitting up close to a device? And it makes a huge difference in how you experience whatever it is that you're experiencing, watching a video format or playing a game, or, you know, shopping on an e-commerce site. So just to wrap this part up, and again, this is pretty much my phone, not a real photo of my phone, but this is my phone. So it's an iPhone 6S. But if you look at specifically, I just went and looked at what are sort of my specs on my phone. This is my screen size that I'm using. This is my screen resolution, my aspect ratio, my primary input type, because I think I use voice a lot as well, but it's mainly multi-touch. And my posture is usually kind of, you know, like this most of the time, and then it's usually portrait. So thinking about that is highly, highly personal, right? So when we're designing something, we usually think like, oh, well, this works on a phone, or this works on a phone with a screen size, you know, X, Y, Z. But there's a lot more aspects that we need to take care of to really ensure that it's you know, an amazing or delightful customer experience, and highly relevant to the person that's using it. So multi-device is one thing. There's multi-platform. Again, I think we came into the game quite late with regards to apps. I mean, apps have been around for a long time. And platform that I'm referring to is now, it's kind of web versus apps, but also within apps, you know, do you go native or don't you go native, etc. And if you look, I don't know who knows Flipkart around here? Anyone? Not too many. Good. Spree is way more relevant in this market. That's good. But if you're from India or you're in India, you will, all hands would be up, because it's the e-commerce company in India. And what they did a few years ago, 2 years ago, is India's obviously mobile heavy, so they've already got most of their traffic on mobile, if not all of their traffic on mobile. But they actually took their app and they said, we're only going mobile app. We don't care about the website. We don't need a mobile website. We're just doing app only. So they shut it down. But a few months later, they actually backtracked, and they said, well, they called it Flipkart Lite and basically just put up their mobile site again. And the question is, why did they do this? And there's a similar example, probably also because Myntra and Flipkart are connected, but Myntra is sort of the number one in fashion e-commerce. They did the same thing. They shut down their mobile website, and literally less than a year later, they reintroduced it. And the question is, you know, why did they do this? And I remember at the time when they were doing this, we were watching them and going, well, maybe this is something for us to do as well. And it would have been a very bad idea, especially if we look at how much traffic is on our mobile website. The interesting thing is, if you're looking at web and versus apps, and it's very debatable, but what we've seen, and this is research, you know, I think this is actually from Luke Wroblewski himself, that shows that if you, the apps show great engagement. We see this in our apps as well. The engagement is incredibly high, conversion rate is incredibly high compared to mobile web. But what mobile web does, it has a lot more reach, right? There's a lot less hurdle to get to a mobile web browser. You don't have to download software, you don't have to download the app, you don't have to update your apps, etc. So if you want to create the reach or keep a certain amount of reach, which you may or may not convert to apps, then you definitely need to have a really, really good mobile web experience too. So it's not really about the one versus the other, was my takeaway, but it's more about how do you offer both, and how do you make it very complementary. And then it's up to you to have a strategy whether you really want to shove your customers into one direction or not. But at the end of the day, it's a matter of choice. Your customers need to have the choice. Do I use a browser? Do I use an app? What do I prefer? And you kind of have to do both. And in our case, what we did as well is we did go native app. That was a discussion where the business typically says, why do a native app? It's expensive, the maintenance is incredible, you have to have these developers specifically who are expensive iOS and Android developers, why do it? And the simple answer is, if you want the best customer experience, then that's what you need to do. So, rather invest, get the people in-house, and then build a native Android and a native iOS app, and you're on your way. It really is the best way to kind of approach apps. These are a few examples that I've picked up of interesting companies doing interesting things with technology, but also with a very clear customer experience focus and kind of empowering their customers, so giving them choices and giving them very innovative and different ways to interact with them outside of the norm that they offer anyway. So I think Starbucks, everybody knows Starbucks. What they did, and this is quite a recent example, this is in 2016, so last year, beginning of last year, they were sending out, they have kind of a membership a group of members that they send out promotions to, and what they used to do beginning of last year is that they created 30 handcrafted mailers, and they'd send those out every few weeks. And the problem was that the data they had was actually always 2 weeks old as well when they put together the mailers. They then invested heavily into AI, so artificial intelligence. They built a huge engine around it and hired a lot of people. And about 6 months later, based on the engine, what they did is they were sending out 400,000 variants. So 30 variants 6 months before, 400,000 6 months later, sending these out. So not extremely personalized, but quite personalized emails. And obviously the data was real time. And a few months after that, they reached a point, this was end of last year, where they are now sending one-to-one emails. That means if all of us were members, every single one of us would get a very individual type of promotional email. And this is all technology-based, based on their AI system. So what it does, it's kind of a combination of using historical data, so what do they know about the customer that he's done before, but also predictive data. What do we anticipate that the customer will be doing? So imagine the difference in experience, and this is within a year, of being one of these members and getting kind of the email that everybody else gets, so relevance probably not so high. Or getting an email which is literally, this is absolutely super duper relevant to where I am right now and to who I am and what I'm doing. So I think that's quite an incredible example. And you wouldn't expect this from someone who offers coffee, right? It's not, I think it's quite unusual. And then this is just something else that they've been doing as well. And they're kind of rolling out this year quite strongly, which is a virtual barista, which you can use again just from a convenience point of view. I think it's quite an interesting example, again, of being able to interact with a company that offers coffee. Netflix, I think, is a great example. I don't know who uses Netflix here, or you're all more into Showtime. I mean, I'm from a NASPA's own company, so I've got to kind of say that. No, okay. Netflix, anyone? Yeah, yeah, well, you've got to be Netflix. Yeah. So, okay, I actually don't use Netflix much myself, but everything I've heard from friends and family and other people who are using Netflix, they're quite happy about what happens, and they're always amazed about, like, it keeps recommending stuff that I then end up finding really, really interesting, and I do watch it, and it's actually something which is really, really relevant to me. I think what many people don't know is that Netflix isn't very new to the whole sort of artificial intelligence game. They've been doing this for over 10 years. They've got an incredible recommendations engine. They have many, many people working on this engine and have been doing so for many years. And what they do is that most of the content that we actually, or that the customers get on Netflix, so over 75%, is purely recommended via this engine. So that means that most of the time you don't actually have to go and really search for stuff, but ideally you'll just get things recommended that just seem magically to be highly relevant to you. What they also do very well is that they kind of combine technology and the human touch. So I don't think it's always all about technology, and technology will solve everything, but there's much value in seeing the combination. What they do is they actually tag all of the sort of the movie and the TV shows that they have. They have 80,000 internal categories, 80,000, so that's quite a lot. I mean, I can't think of it in sort of genres because it wouldn't make sense to me, but 80,000 categories, so very nuanced. And then what they do is they kind of feed that through the recommendation engine. And they obviously have people working there as well who have a deep, deep understanding of the content, so of TV, of movies, etc. And that combination, I think, is what makes Netflix very, very popular and what makes them a very, successful company. And obviously, they're very good at doing multi-device, but I think that goes without saying. A super example, okay, I'm in the e-commerce business, so whenever somebody mentions Amazon, it's kind of like, who, e-commerce giants, and that's what we all know them for. I mean, they are the e-commerce giants. They're putting a lot of brick and mortar businesses out of business bit by bit. And the interesting thing about this company, I think, is sort of what they do, and I think this is driven very strongly by their CEO, by Jeff Bezos. How do they innovate? What do they do? And they constantly think about the customer and how can we sort of interact with our customer, or let our customer interact with us, specifically in ways that haven't been done before. And I think someone in one of the workshops I was in mentioned as well talked about radical, and I like that because there's, I think we try a lot to improve things incrementally, and that's good because we're improving stuff. But it's very hard to improve something radically. An example in e-commerce is, or the example is checkout. People are obsessed about the checkout experience, and there's a lot to be done right, but you can increment on that. And what Amazon has done is, for instance, they've created one-click checkout, but they've gone a lot further. We'll get to some examples just now. They've been dabbling in physical stores, which I think is interesting. This has started about 2 years ago, where you think is very counterintuitive. So these are the places they're putting out of business, and so now they open their own brick-and-mortar store. Why would Amazon do that? So they do it to trial things. They want to showcase their gadgets. They want to kind of create this experience of serendipity where people just sort of walk about and check things out and find stuff. But they also want to change the paradigm a bit, as in let the customer do the work. Because e-commerce is really hard for the companies who are doing e-commerce, because we're trying to take away all the work for the customer and trying to create convenience. And they're doing a bit of both. They're kind of turning it around again. I don't know whether this will work. I know that if there were an Amazon store, say in Cape Town, I would definitely go check it out because it just seems like an interesting thing to do, and just to see what are they doing there. And obviously what they also do is they test a lot of their own retail technology within sort of a store setting as opposed to online. So interesting, and probably a lot of trial and error. I don't know who's heard of Amazon Go. Fairly new. I think a couple of people have raised their hands. Basically, it's Amazon's moving very strongly into the groceries industry, in the States at least. And what they do is they've created this concept of, again, thinking about the checkout, which they've been thinking about for over 20 years. They thought, how about we make it so frictionless that there is no checkout? There's no cashier, there's no checkout. You just walk in, and basically how it works, it's a highly, highly technical setup, so everything's linked up. There's a lot of sensors, a lot of cameras, a lot of internet connections going on. But you'd walk into one of these stores, and they are currently rolling these out in Seattle. And basically, you have the Amazon app on your phone. You open up the app, and then you can put it into your pocket, and you just walk in, and there are kind of sensors that you walk through, and they recognize, they go, oh, that's Sven, got you there. And then you walk through, and then you can literally go, there's all the groceries, everything's just there, and you can pick your food. And as you pick stuff up and kind of want to take it out, it'll register on your, you don't have to scan it, it'll actually just register on your phone. It's like magic, right? It's amazing. So go check out the video. There's a nice video on this on the net, and it just fills up your cart. And if you put something back, like I don't want that muffin, I'm putting it back, it'll take it out of your cart again. And then as you walk out, you check out, you pay, but you're not really paying. You just walk out, right? And you've paid, and you get an email that says, thanks, Sven, for your purchase. You bought these 5 items. This was the total cost. Amazing. And that's it, right? So that's a great example of people just going way beyond, how do we take out another form field in the checkout, and how do we do this, and how do we create the interface a little bit better, but rather just say, let's just create a whole different experience. Let's be radical about it. Where can we go that nobody has gone before? Whether this will work, who knows? We'll see, but I think it's an exciting idea. I'm not sure how this would work in South Africa. Just saying. I can imagine a lot of people getting a lot of free stuff all of a sudden, and Amazon not being happy, but yeah. But it's an interesting one to watch. I think voices, obviously, I don't know who of you follow Mary Meeker and her yearly trend reports. It's quite a big deal. And this is something that she highlighted. And I think we all kind of know and feel that voice is one of the big things happening right now. So Alexa is a great example of a totally different way of interacting. Voice assistants aren't new. They've been around for a while. But they're getting really good now, and it's becoming really interesting. The devices are becoming interesting. There's obviously downsides. I don't know who has kids. Kids and Alexa, not always a good combination. I've seen some interesting things on what has been ordered. Kids order things like love and Spider-Man toothpaste and lots of stuff, and they'll do this times 100, etc., and then off goes Amazon, and ding dong, well, good luck with that. So I think there's still a bit of testing to do there, but it's an interesting idea of interacting. And what Amazon has done specifically in the last 2 years is super interesting in the sense that they've taken the original Echo, and they've just gone on with it, and they've created the Dot, which is much more about connecting sort of your house system and your music system, etc. But still does a lot of the same things as the original Echo does. They've now just rolled out this year. It's called the Echo Look, I think is what it's called. Interesting for people in fashion, like myself, in a fashion e-commerce business. I think it's a bit sneaky or a bit strange, but okay. You basically set this up in your closet, and it'll take pictures of you as you put on. You give it a voice command. It'll take a picture of your outfit, and it'll store these for you, and then it'll start actually recommending which outfits you should be wearing, or which look good and which don't look good. So you don't have to ask your husband anymore. You can just go like, Alexa, do I look good? And then obviously it recommends stuff that you can buy at Amazon, of course, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's quite, again, it's a lot of these things, first you go, whoa, okay. But this is very innovative. And they're trying things out. They're pushing the envelope. Whether it works or not, we'll see in a couple of years' time. And then this is just another take on adding visuals, really. The Echo Show, kind of taking the original Echo and just, creating a different experience, more visual experience, audio-visual experience. And they've also taking Alexa to wearables, which is an interesting one. So they started off with this Co-Watch, it's called, and it'll be interesting to see where else they are going. So Alexa is really starting to creep into a lot of different places, and it's not limited to one device. So I think that's to me is like that's the one company that I watch a lot, just from an innovation and how do what do they do? How do they allow their customers to interact with them perspective? I mean, just to stick with this theme, Apple, obviously, everybody knows Siri. It's been around for, I think, 6 years or so. And what's coming this year is something called the HomePod. A lot of usual sort of Apple excitement around this new thing coming out. But essentially, it's something it's apparently an amazing sound system, really, that connects all your music. So it's, again, just to showcase that all these very big, very successful, very tech-forward companies, what are they doing in this space? Google's doing the same. I don't know if most of you who use Google products will probably know Google Now. Google Now has been around for a while, but now it's kind of the next evolutionary step is called Google Assistant. Very creative name to give their assistant. It's called Google Assistant. Others have, I think, cooler names, but okay. And they're also doing something called, I'm not actually sure I think this is called just Google Home. I don't know, they're not that creative when it comes to their names, but they've got pretty good products. And Microsoft obviously is another one they've got a very cool name, Cortana. There's some history to this that I don't know. Again, just another voice assistant that's also being spread across all of the sort of device types and all the software that they deliver. So there's a lot of competition in there. Has anyone seen this movie? No. Yes, a couple. I haven't seen it yet, but I know about it. And this is basically this guy falling in love with his voice assistant. So, I don't know. Is that where we're going? I don't know. Maybe. It seems a bit scary, but interesting. And kind of just to wrap it up, I want to give one or two examples of, these are these big global amazing companies that we all know and use, and they've got lots of resources, and sometimes you read about they have 15,000 developers, and then we go back to our offices and go, wow, okay, we've got 10 developers. This is really hard to do. But I think even if with a small group, a lot is possible. And these are just two examples of what we've done at Spree that we think have have helped our customers and continue to help our customers to actually interact with us in a way that we haven't offered them before, and it has shown in our results. These are pick-up and drop-off points. Again, I think we have a Dutch CEO, and when he came here 2 years ago, he was very astounded that the infrastructure is just not the same as in the Netherlands, right? And he says, but everything, why doesn't this work, Why doesn't the courier just pitch up when he says, and why doesn't he phone you? And it took us like 6 months to explain to him. We said, like, listen, the system here is slightly broken. It's just the way it is. We have to work around it and so on. And he says, like, no, it's you guys. You guys are doing it all wrong. We said, no, it's, we work with all these couriers and so on. Okay, 6 months later, he said, you know what? The system is broken here. And I said, like, yes, okay. So that's when we knew he had onboarded. That was great. But the nice thing was that he said, fine, so let's be innovative. Let's do things that'll kind of work around this or still create a great experience for the customer until the couriers one day, get their thing right. And pick-up and drop-off points really just, I think we've got 1,000 pick-up and drop-off points around the country, and this is constantly growing, so it's all sorts of clicks and Caltex and a whole lot of different places that people generally go to and that have got great opening times as well, so that you don't have to wait for a courier, you miss a courier, so you can actually decide, I'm buying this online on Spree, but I want to pick it up at that and that place, and I'll just pick it up at my leisure, which is easier. And the same for the returns side of things. Quite popular. Time slot deliveries is another one where we just said, like, make it very, very, again, give the customer the power, you choose. Usually it's like, we'll deliver in 2 to 4 days, and customers go, I'm not sure what that means. And usually it's 4 days, and by then you've forgotten and you've phoned up anyway. And then even if it's on that day, you don't know what time, and this is logistics is really, really hard to get right. So again, these are the things where we said, fine, we'll turn it around. You can still do couriers and everything, but try this. This is a premium service, and people are using it, so we think it's worthwhile. And the last example is what you referred to earlier on, which is what we won this Digital Innovator Award for. And there was 4 people who worked on this, and actually just 1 developer. So 3 people who are telling the developer what to do and 1 developer. And essentially, this is also AI-driven, so there's artificial intelligence behind it. It's image search. It's 2 features, really. The one is you can actually take it's in the app currently. It's not on the web yet, which shows, again, our evolution. So we'll start in the app, and the web comes later. But if you have the Spree app, you can literally take a photo of someone standing there wearing something that you really like. And then you can plug that in, and you can see from our 40,000 products that we have what matches against that. And alternatively, what you can do is you can also upload an image from your photo library. So if you've got something that you saw on a celebrity site or something that you saw wherever on Pinterest that you really like, same story. And that's getting a lot of traction. And it was a lot of fun to work on this kind of thing because customers are not expecting this. This is, they're used to going, here's your catalog, go find your thing, off you go. The second example here is you press and hold. Same thing, we've done that all over the app. So wherever you see product images, you can press and hold, and we show this bar at the bottom, which is similar styles. And it's using the same tech, though, to just kind of match pretty relevant things. And it's using a lot of different factors, from silhouette to style to color, et cetera, et cetera. And we were the first in Africa to do this from a sort of fashion retail perspective, so we're quite proud of that. This has been mentioned. Thank you. We actually we didn't think we'd going to win this, but we're very happy we did. So my statement here is really just empower with choice. So that's kind of the thread here is what we're trying to do, and I think that the companies that are successful, what they do is they just give a lot of choice, very personalized, but a lot of different options to interact with a brand, and that's, I think, really the key to success. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And if you guys want to see, there's a absolutely brilliant Saturday Night Live skit about the sort of like senior citizen edition of Alexa. It's an absolutely brilliant skit about sort of how these can go wrong, not just for children, but also for elderly adults. It's great. Check it out.